Hera's baby boy was literally her little prince, named after the late music legend.
He was just such a little doll.
And he was the child Hera dreamed of having when she returned home to Manassas, Virginia, after serving overseas for a U.S. government consulting firm. Hera had also satisfied her sense of adventure as a reality TV star.
You and your dad competed on The Amazing Race?
We did.
Oh, you got it? Good job, Daddy.
Now she was ready to be a mom.
I was just kind of looking to settle down and start a family.
And she believed she finally found the right man to do it with when she met Joaquin Rams on an online dating site.
Oh wow, like he's just so nice, he's kind, and this is great.
He just seemed like a loving, upstanding kind of guy.
The single father of a 10-year-old son.
And I was like, well, anybody who has custody of their kid must be good.
He was certainly good at sweeping a girl off her feet.
They call it love bombing, when somebody comes in and they just pour on all this affection, and you just get wrapped up in this whole like, oh wow, like he's just so nice.
Joaquin also appeared to be a successful singer who boasted of working with the famous likes of Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera.
And he was going to be rich and famous, and he was going to buy mommy a house and outdo everyone.
Hera had found him irresistible.
As soon as he started talking, it was like he just had this ability to like grab you in.
And it wasn't long before Hera and Joaquin were living together.
He spent like the first few months making me feel amazing and making me feel like he loved me.
Hera's happiness seemed complete when she learned she was pregnant with Prince, seeing him alive and kicking for the first time in this sonogram.
But I wasn't excited about the fact that we weren't married, and he definitely was not excited about it, which made it worse.
Oh, so he was unhappy when you told him.
So when he first found out, he was really unhappy. He was like angry at me, and I was like, wait, you're acting like I did this myself. And I was like, you know, that doesn't work that way.
But they became engaged, and Prince's birth would be the most joyous experience of her life.
How did you feel the first time you held Prince?
It's like you say hello to someone that you feel like you've known your whole life, and you just met them.
He's such a beautiful little boy.
He was an angel. I mean, he came out and he was like, one of the reasons I called him Prince is that he started singing. He wasn't crying. He was like, la, la.
And Hera hoped Joaquin would come to love the boy as much as she did.
He was the type of kid that you could just hand off to like another family member and he would just be smiling. And he was also just so laid back.
But Joaquin only grew increasingly unhappy, refusing to work and relying on Hera to be the sole breadwinner of the family.
So then I was paying for everything.
And Joaquin began to reveal a dark side Hera had never seen before.
Do you mind sharing some of the red flags that you saw?
He had these moments where he would just like fly into a rage.
Allegedly becoming abusive and violent.
He was arrested for beating up his son while I was there.
Oh my gosh.
A horrified Hera realized she'd badly misread Joaquin.
It was like this darkness. I felt like I was always walking on eggshells.
Fearing for the safety of her little prince as well as her own.
I was like, oh God, how are we gonna get out of this situation?
It would reach a crisis point with a shocking accusation by Hera's younger sister that Joaquin had raped her. But according to Washington Post reporter Tom Jackman, Joaquin claimed it was consensual sex and had secretly videotaped the encounter to prove it.
And the police watched this tape and declined to charge him with rape.
But consensual or not, it was the last straw for Hera, who left Joaquin and took their baby son Prince with her.
It was like somebody put a bucket of cold water on my head and I woke up and I was like, this man is a monster. And I don't know why it took something like that happening for me to realize how bad he was.
Hera McLeod had come to realize that the father of her precious little prince was not the dream man she thought he was when they met.
Do you feel like there was ever a point that you were like truly in love with him?
I can't actually say I was in love with him because I don't think I ever knew him.
Hera tells Crime Watch Daily's Elizabeth Smart that Joaquin Rams had turned into a violent and frightening Jekyll and Hyde monster.
Sad reality is that I think Joaquin is just a vessel of evil.
But Hera says she had no idea just how evil he was until the two became entangled in a bitter custody battle over Prince. And she discovered, with the help of a private investigator, that Joaquin had been living a dark and deadly double life.
He's been somebody who has basically been a criminal his entire life, or at least what I know of his life.
Oh, wow.
For a start, Joaquin's boast that he was a successful singer who'd worked with an array of famous performers turned out to be a whopper of a lie.
I've never seen any evidence that he had any kind of involvement in the music industry.
Washington Post reporter Tom Jackman and Joaquin's half-brother Joseph Velez say it was the fabrication of an apparently sick mind.
He was delusional, he was a pathological liar, he was a narcissist. He didn't care about anything or anyone but himself, and all he cared about is what he can get from you.
It was also learned that some of the money Joaquin had flashed around to create the appearance of success had allegedly come from the sex trade.
To my knowledge, he's never actually had a legitimate job.
But it's where the rest of his money came from that really set off the alarm bells.
He was living off of life insurance.
So he was basically like a con man, fraud.
He's a psychopath.
Collecting $162,000 on a policy he'd taken out on his mother, who would later die under mysterious circumstances.
She has a bag over her head. A note is left, a handwritten note saying that she didn't want to go on anymore, and the case is ruled a suicide.
But her family didn't buy the official finding that she'd suffocated herself in the home she shared with Joaquin.
There was absolutely nothing that anyone could do to convince me that my mother, my mother didn't commit suicide. She didn't commit suicide. My mother was murdered.
Joaquin's brother says that became obvious when he read the coroner's report.
There were bruises on her body. There was marks all over her neck. She had apparent puncture wounds in her abdomen area. She had a huge amount of blood coming out of her face.
And Joseph alleges that his brother Joaquin did the unthinkable, murdered his own mother.
And he poisoned her, he strangled her, and he possibly bludgeoned her.
Hera was horrified when she learned about the case.
I was told that Rams's mother died of a heart attack.
The suicide note that the mother supposedly wrote, are you saying that it's possible that Rams forged it?
I think it's absolutely possible he forged it.
And she and her private investigator would make another shocking discovery. Joaquin had also been a suspect in the murder of the mother of his older son, Joaquin Jr.
He told me that she had died in a car accident.
Hera was shocked when she learned the truth.
She was shot in the head the day before they were supposed to go in for custody court.
Well, that was not an accident.
Yeah, it was such a weird case.
And Joaquin had taken out a life insurance policy on her too, with a reported payout of more than $100,000.
Joaquin did not collect any life insurance from Sean's death. That money was placed in a trust for their son, Joaquin Jr.
The case would remain unsolved. But an alarmed Hera was convinced Joaquin was a murderer, and now they were in a custody battle too.
I was like, yes, he is going to kill me.
But Hera was more afraid for the safety of Prince after Joaquin was granted visitation with the child, despite Hera's protests and warnings.
How did you feel about letting your son be with them unsupervised?
I was terrified. I mean, it was like sending your child across a field of landmines and just hoping that they return alive.
Then, while 15-month-old Prince was with his father, it happens.
Stop breathing!
Joaquin's roommate calls 911 saying he fears Prince is dying.
Right now he's unconscious. He was having seizures and...
so he's having seizures?
Yeah.
The little boy had a history of mild febrile seizures caused by fevers, but they're not considered life-threatening.
It's literally like a kid can have a febrile seizure and then get up and like run down the hall.
It sounds a lot more serious this time.
He's bleeding from his nose.
He's bleeding? No.
That's Joaquin, who can be heard yelling from across the room where he and his roommate's girlfriend are trying to revive Prince.
And now he's trying to give him mouth-to-mouth.
Okay, hold on now. I don't want you all to don't do any mouth-to-mouth right now, okay?
The roommate relays instructions to Joaquin, who sounds like he's crying in the background.
He's just totally unresponsive. He's not moving. And he's not doing anything. Leave him on his side, Joaquin. I got him on his side. I'm holding him.
The roommate gets impatient with an apparently hysterical Joaquin.
Please sit down. I can't help if I'm chasing you around the room.
Sir?
The operator tells them to try chest compressions on Prince.
I didn't feel a heartbeat. Here comes the ambulance.
Okay, that's very good, sir. Let's continue doing it, okay?
Finally, medics arrive.
Right here.
And the child was declared dead at the hospital where his mother touched her little Prince for the last time.
He had these like big, beautiful curls, and I ran my hand through his hair and it was ice cold. And then he basically was brain dead.
The news that her angelic little Prince was dead was so devastating that Hera McLeod thought she'd died too and gone to heaven with him.
When did you find out he was dead?
We were in the hospital for about 3 hours.
Your baby's gone.
I remember just like falling over, and I felt like it was this weird out-of-body experience where it was like watching this happening from like somebody else. I didn't feel like I was there for probably like several minutes.
But Hera tells Crime Watch Daily's Elizabeth Smart she wasn't surprised that her worst fears had become tragically real.
When I finally realized what was happening, I mean, I think I just kind of was like, okay, like this finally happened. Like this finally happened. And it was weird because it wasn't a shock, because I knew, I mean, it was what I had been worried about for the whole time.
That Prince would die if he was left alone with his father, Joaquin Rams.
And I remember telling the doctors, I'm like, he did this. This is murder.
The initial autopsy would suggest Hera was right.
What did the doctors say that Prince died of?
The coroner said it was drowning, but most of the doctors said it was some kind of like suffocation, so like either drowning or suffocation.
It wasn't natural.
It was not natural causes, no.
And although the cause of death would later be changed to undetermined, a police investigation would uncover a sickening motive for Prince's murder. More than $500,000 Joaquin was due to collect on 3 life insurance policies he had taken out on his 15-month-old son.
He waited until my son was a year old, we think, because usually that's as long as it takes for like the life insurance to become eligible for payout.
When did you find out that he had policies?
2
on
weeks
all these
after my
people?
son died.
Prosecutors are also armed with the details of Joaquin's dark past when he's arrested for murder 3 months after his baby Prince died. Among them, that he had previously taken out life insurance policies on his mother, who died under suspicious circumstances. And another on his other son's mother, whom Joaquin was suspected of shooting to death.
When there's a pattern of murders and abuse, and this person just keeps getting away with it, I don't think that we can be shocked that he felt emboldened enough to kill a toddler.
3 people very close to Joaquin Rams died, and all 3 of them had big life insurance policies. Either he's incredibly unlucky or he's a serial killer.
Prosecutor Paul Ebert suspects the latter and puts Joaquin on trial for the first-degree murder of his little boy.
It's a question of what caused his death. Did he have a seizure, or was he smothered or drowned?
That will be decided by a judge, not a jury, in a deal that spares Joaquin the death penalty.
It basically was a battle of the experts, and the judge had a lot of evidence he had to sift through and make some factual findings.
The judge hears 2 opposing versions of what happened the day Prince died while in the care of his father.
The defense's version is that Joaquin put Prince down for a nap, and that he was checking on him later, and that he saw Prince having a seizure.
He's just totally unresponsive.
But the prosecution alleges Joaquin had already murdered his son.
The prosecution moved forward with the theory that perhaps during the time that Prince was taking a nap that afternoon, his dad had swept into the room, picked him up, suffocated him with a pillow, and then placed him back in the crib. And then came in later and went through the charade of, oh my gosh, he's seizing, and yells for his housemate to call 911.
He was having seizures, and
Okay, so he's having seizures.
yes.
The defense insists the seizure was real, as was Joaquin's distress.
Listen to me. Tell him to just calm down, okay?
Calm down. Come on in here, Joaquin.
It sounds like Joaquin is genuinely disturbed, but we can't see him, we can't see the baby, we don't know what else is going on.
Leave him on his side, Joaquin. I got him on his side. I'm holding him.
But in fact, the judge did rule that he was acting and that the call was a charade.
Just a little more than a month before, Joaquin made a previous 911 call when he was taking care of Prince, who had a history of febrile seizures caused by high fevers.
Emergency 911.
Yes, I have a young child that has had seizures in the past. He's in the middle of another seizure.
Okay, hold on.
But Hera thinks the call is suspicious.
I think he hoped that it would be an alibi. He was like, oh, perfect, like I can say he had a seizure.
If so, Joaquin hoped wrong.
There were a number of experts on febrile seizures who convinced Judge Bellows that it was not possible for Prince to have died of a febrile seizure, that children do not die of febrile seizures.
And Joaquin's fate is sealed,
The judge ruled it was a murder, willful premeditated murder.
giving him the max.
The judge sentenced him to life plus 10 years.
They put him where he belongs.
So, yeah, they finally got him.
And as Joaquin appeals the verdict, investigators are taking a closer look at those suspicious deaths of both his mother and the mother of his elder son,
I believe in my heart and soul that Joaquin Rams is a serial killer.
who's expected to die behind bars.
Never to be able to commit another crime like this.
But Hera believes Joaquin would have kept killing if he hadn't been stopped.
Do you think he would have just gone on to do it again?
Oh, absolutely.
She thinks Joaquin might have even killed her, if not for her special little guardian angel.
I think I was probably a target, and I wish it had been me rather than my son, but I mean, my son saved my life.